overcome fear, and live in purpose. So this is a true story from when I was a kid. I had to place it, I must have been around third grade. I think that's about 8 or 9 years old, about 8 years old. And I was doing what I typically did at recess during the third grade, which is go up to the girls and irritate them until one of the girls got mad at something I said, and then she came after me so that she could sock me one or she could beat me up, and then I would just run, and then she would have to chase me around the playground. This was the way that I would entertain myself during recess. Now, on this particular day, like normal, I had agitated a girl to the point where I definitely deserved to get some sort of retribution. So she's coming after me to give it to me. And I'm running, and I'm outrunning her. I'm looking behind me, laughing in delight. I'm just laughing as I'm outrunning this girl. But the problem is I was not looking in front of me. So I turned just in time to see that I was about to hit a metal pole. It was the basketball pole for the basketball hoop. And then, bam, smacked right into it. My face hit the pole at running speed. And I just bounced backwards and laid out on the ground. I may have actually been knocked out for a moment. When I came to, I had a busted lip, and I was shaken up from how fast fun could turn into immediate pain. Running into a metal pole is not something I would recommend anyone try. But where did I go wrong? Well, some would say in irritating the girls in the first place. But if you look beyond that point, why did I run into the metal pole? The reason I hit the pole was because I was focused on the source of my fear, what I was running from, instead of focused on where I was going, my destination. For trauma survivors to be able to heal properly, they must be focused on their destination. Fleeing the source of your fear is a symptom of CPTSD. It is not healed to be worried about, to be obsessing about the source of your fear. If you are trying to operate your life the way you would operate a motor vehicle, you cannot be looking more in the rear view than you're looking into the windshield. You need to be focused on your destination in order to be successful at reaching it. Likewise, in operating something far more valuable than a motor vehicle, our lives, we have to be focused on a goal, not focused on what we fear. The goal, the objective. Where are we going? What are we trying to do? That is what you call a purpose. It is an objective that you are driving toward. Our purpose doesn't have to be something profound. It just needs to be something that's obtainable, beneficial for ourselves and others, harmonious with the universe, pleasing to our Creator, and ultimately something we can look back on 400, 600 days from now and say, that was worth the anguish, the suffering, the turmoil that I had to go through in order to accomplish it. That's a purpose. So you pick something and then you drive towards it. And if you focus on your goal instead of focusing on your fear, then you're less likely to come smack dab into failure. The reason why a survivor can lose themselves is because they lose track of where they're going and what they want. I want you to know, whether you have borderline personality disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or you've never been diagnosed and you're still trying to figure out what's wrong with you, you can heal. you can overcome. But I don't want you to take my word for it. Over the past 5 weeks, I've been meeting with a group of extraordinary individuals who themselves have been overcoming. And tonight, they're going to share with you their words on overcoming fear and living in purpose. So one by one, I will be calling them up. First, I'd like you to give your attention to a trauma recovery specialist who is a friend of mine and actually gave me the idea that I should hold a public speaking social anxiety intensive. Let us give our attention to Betty Cousins.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Betty. As Roman said, I am a trauma recovery specialist and licensed therapist. So I want to reiterate what Roman said, that you can overcome fear and live in purpose. The reason why I can say that is because I have had to do that exact thing myself. So for the majority of my life, I was just overcome with fear, didn't really understand why I was so afraid, why I was afraid of people. It was just constant fear, and that was my focus until about a year or so ago when I started to understand what CPTSD is and started to work on that. In that mindset change in the process, I do want to let you know, I want to offer this advice. Is that when you're starting to change, you will have some uncomfortability. I hear from clients every day, where they tell me, well, Betty, it's uncomfortable when they're trying to move away from fear, move away from people pleasing, move away from being a person that does not have boundaries. What I hear about all the time is the uncomfortability, where we know as people who are more empathetic, sometimes we're concerned about other people's feelings, their emotions. We absorb the feelings and emotion of others. But what I want to let you know, as you start to overcome this fear, as you heal, as you start to overcome and thrive and truly step into that purpose, uncomfortability is a part of it. But I want to let you know that that uncomfortability means that you are doing something right, that you are now doing an opposite action. And once you are able to start to get into that healing phase, your purpose will start to emerge, where you will start to explore and learn more about yourself, who you are, what your likes are, what your dislikes or what they're not. And so I know for me, my purpose is helping people. That's what I do naturally. I can do it in my sleep. I love it. It is truly my purpose to help others. And I just want to let you know, again, I want to reiterate that you most definitely can heal. You most definitely can overcome and step into that purpose. Your purpose will truly emerge. So that's what I have to say. Think that you can most definitely overcome fear.
Thank you so much, Betty. Thank you for sharing those encouraging words with us. Appreciate you. Next, we'd like to give our attention to my friend and fierce supporter. She's a proselytizer for trauma recovery. Her name is Kelsey G. Let's give her our attention.
So many times when I used to feel fear as I was younger and had to get up in front of the class, I thought that that was just how it was supposed to be. And the good news that I learned in this class is that, that sweaty palms, your heart racing, struggling to get your words out and just being nervous when it's time to speak, you can really utilize that as your fuel. Really, we have fear based on like some of the negative things that come up. So if we can start, like anytime that we go into a fearful situation that we're concerned about, we're worried about, we can really say, I mean, for me, I personally use prayer many times because obviously that's very positive affirmation. But I would say use speaking that is beneficial to you, of course. And also, think about, like, I know a lot of the times with Roman, we talk about our inner child is like, would you ever go to, if you have a child, or think as if you do have a child, would you ever go to your child and say, like, you're going to have a terrible speaking engagement, or you're going to mess up, or you're going to say the wrong things? You would never do that. So definitely think about the words that you're saying to yourself, because those make a big difference. And obviously turn those into positive things like, I can do it. I am going to do well. One thing that I utilize with my team, because many times we do with our clients give presentations in living in purpose, is that if you never can actually heal from, what it is that hurt you, either in your childhood, in your adulthood, if someone hurt you, or if you were hurt by something that happened, if you can never actually heal from that, then you aren't able to help the person that you used to be. And that could be you being one step ahead of somebody else. And because that's, something that I'm very much living in every single day, is I'm always thinking about helping the person that I used to be. And again, I could be just one step ahead, or, I could have, they could be dealing with something that I have healed and moved past and overcome, and maybe I'm still working on, still overcoming, still needing to pray about every single day, still needing to forgive potentially that situation. But again, that empowers me to be able to say, hey, yeah, let's talk through that. Let's work through that. I can sit down with them and say, I've dealt with something like that before. Yeah, I've overcome that. And this is the exact steps that I personally took to actually be able to overcome the fear of that. Something that I think about, when we go, because obviously many situations, not just public speaking or not just having social anxiety, but in many situations, we can have fear, and obviously, change those thoughts. And as we work through changing those thoughts and we get to that situation again, we can say, hey, yeah, I've dealt with this before. You can say that to yourself. Yeah, I've dealt with this before, and I'm going to change my thoughts to be a positive conversation this time. Is like, just to, as you do that more and more, you're basically teaching yourself that you have the courage to overcome it. So, now a lot of the times in my life, I look forward to going into uncomfortable situations. I look forward to doing things that I'm like, types of things used to scare me. I look forward to doing things that are uncertain or, fearful, just because I'm like, I'm going to overcome that. I'm going to push through. I'm going to run through the tape on it. And then I'm going to know, like, I'm going to be able to give myself that courage and say, hey, this is something you overcame, and you can just keep leveling up from there. So, that's how I've overcome fear and been able to work on living in purpose. Thank you, guys.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry for muting you. Excellent job.
That's okay.
Well, thanks for those inspiring words. Next, we'll give our attention to a trauma recovery specialist and good friend, Andrea Stone.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Like many of us in this group, I suffered a traumatic childhood. I experienced every form of abuse by the hands of my parents, family members, and people in our community. At the age of 13, I became a homeless teenager, couch surfing, sleeping in Greyhound bus stations, even hitchhiking across the country with strangers. At the age of 14, I found myself living in a trap house, a house where drugs were trafficked, parties were thrown nightly, and most of us were initiated into a gang. On one of those nights of partying, I was forced to sit in the middle of the living room while the head dealer held a gun to my right temple with enough force to leave a mark. I was abused and berated in a room full of people, including an off-duty police officer, and not one of them did anything to stop my life from being taken from me that night. In proverbial fashion, I saw my life flash before my eyes. It had been a short life, but an uneventful one to say the least. The dealer did not pull the trigger. She let me go. I left and never looked back. I was held at gunpoint 2 other times later in my life. The next few years were spent on the streets until I became pregnant with my son at the age of 16. I pulled myself together with the help of government resources and was determined to create a good life for myself and the tiny human growing in my belly. Because I was pregnant, my mother took us in only to kick us out one cold winter day. It's been 32 years, but I remember the day like it was yesterday. No money, no car, no support, just me pushing my 1-month-old baby in his stroller down a sidewalk packed with snow, leaving behind all my possessions. I looked back to see my mattress closed and the baby's bassinet on my mother's front porch. 2 years later, on October 30th, 1991, I got married to a man I knew for only 2 months. Growing up in a household lacking in genuine love and nurturing, I was desperate to feel loved and wanted. During those 2 short months, the man I met expressed his love for me, and I was swept up by his attempts to steal my heart. He told me all the things I'd been dying to hear and made me feel like I was the most beautiful and amazing person he had ever met. We planned a bright future together where all of our biggest dreams were destined to come true. Within a few months, my husband's mask had slipped and fell off, and the next 30 years of my life was spent with a narcissist in a domestic violence situation that I felt I could never escape. Prior to meeting my husband, I wasn't a fearful person at all. I'd already experienced so many traumatic events in my life that there wasn't anything left for me to be afraid of. But the emotional abuse and control I was under during the marriage made me afraid of everything and everyone. He was a fearmonger, and the biggest lie he made me believe that I was worthless and that no one would ever love me like he did. When I finally faced my fears and filed for divorce, he took his own life, which gave me my freedom, but came with the immense fear of living alone and having to face my past. I had to confront fears of being unlovable and worthless and dying without ever fulfilling my purpose on earth. The struggle to live courageously and strive for self-actualization was intense, but totally worth it. The key thing for overcoming my fears has been to master the art of mind, M-I-N-D. This happens to be the title of Roman's book, but in his ADAPT program, the acronym stands for Mentally Identify the Negative Distortion. I had to use this tool to drop deep into my subconscious to discover what the true feelings behind my fears were. Once you can clearly see and understand that your fears are influenced by distorted beliefs and you learn how to change those beliefs, you can change your whole life. I am worthy. I am lovable. The falsehoods I believe that were planted into my subconscious have been uprooted. And although I can't say I don't ever feel afraid, I can say fear no longer controls me, as I know how to quell those fears instantly now. In the past 9 months, I have completed intense counseling with Roman and recently became a certified trauma recovery specialist. I've turned my pain into purpose and now use my trauma to help others to heal and live out their life's purpose. I had to kill my own fears of being seen, of sharing my story in order to live out mine. At the end of the day, I realize people are dying from the effects of unhealed trauma, and I refuse to let any of my fears prevent me from helping to save lives. I do not tell my story for sympathy. I no longer live in a state of fear and victimhood. My biggest life goal now is to answer the calling of being a healer in full alignment with my life's purpose. I truly hope this story helps someone tonight, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for sharing. Not a dry eye in the place, I'm sure. So let's give our attention to my friend and climate leader, Pam B.
Hey, Roman. Thank you for that. Sorry, 1 second here. So I recently retired last year, and I had been looking forward to it for a very long time because I had a great job. I was good at what I did, but I knew that it wasn't providing me any personal satisfaction. And the one thing I wanted to do was work with climate change and sustainability. I've been plant-based for probably 17 years. I've driven an electric car for 5 years. And I was raised like out in the country, out in the woods. And so I just have a deep love for nature. And I just, would like to see everybody healthy. So I retired and I was able to start doing that. I joined several groups. I had time now to like spend with them. I got education from them. I've been able to go between group and group so I can share the knowledge I get from one group with another group. And I've actually had two different groups ask me if I would speak and share knowledge at their meetings, which I think is fantastic. I also try to reach out to people individually and try to explain to them things that I know that could help their sustainability if they're interested. But I also realize that a great majority of the problem is our government, that our government also needs to encourage people and lead an example. I happen to live in Ohio, which is a very Republican state, and they really don't do anything for sustainability. They really don't want to talk about it. So I found out that my Ohio representative was going to have a town hall near me. So I went there Monday night, and it was the first time I attended a town hall. And I got there, and there was only about 10 people there. And she knew at least 5 of them by name. At one point, she thanked them for helping her get elected. And then she spent an hour basically giving the Republican agenda for things that were coming up on the ballot and things like that. And I felt very uncomfortable. And I wanted to say and ask her about sustainability, but I didn't. I just felt like the time wasn't right. Felt like I wasn't there with the right people, that I wasn't going to be able to get through with what I wanted to say. So then I came home and I looked at my assignment for tonight, which is how can I overcome fear in achieving my purpose? And I thought, well, I really screwed the pooch on that one. It was like I was not successful. But then I went back and I started looking at, well, what did I do? I did go to the town hall meeting. That lady knows who I am now. Also, more importantly, I know who she is, and I know what will trigger her, how I can approach her now. So even though I didn't do what I wanted to do, I'm just kind of looking at the successes that I did have. And basically, it's just a journey. I'm just going one step at a time.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Appreciate your presentation. So let's give our attention to a buddy of mine, a survivor, loving mother, and a woman of integrity, my friend, Rachel B.
Hello. So a few years ago, I found myself at a racetrack on my first date. And the gentleman was there to schmooze some clients and had asked me to accompany him. And he was very handsome, wonderful man, I thought. And so the date went great. And
there you go.
Early on in the relationship was the great love bombing. It was wonderful. I had the gifts. I had everything else that, comes along with the fantastic first steps. And then I realized, I'm a mom of 4 kids. I started isolating from my kids. Was having to be accountable for the time, when I was at work. When are you going to be here? And it ended up becoming a very toxic relationship. Basically, he was my narcissist. I had to be accountable for every minute that I was not with him. Things went very south very fast. I was very isolated. And at one point, I tried to break things off many times, but breaking things off was always worse than being with him. And so I ended up breaking it off, and he left a voicemail message threatening my son's life. And so I took that to the police and went to court to get a restraining order where he put my 4 kids on the stand. He put my 4 kids on the stand. Shockingly, he was that good of a narcissist. He actually won. I didn't get the restraining order. But a lawyer that I did know ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to help you. And he did help me. And we presented him that, you know, if you don't stay away from her, basically you're going to lose your son. And that did help. He no longer contacted me, and I had a lot to regain. I had all my friendships to rebuild. I had relationships with my own kids I had to rebuild because I had destroyed them from this relationship. So I had to overcome the fear from that whole relationship, what it had done to me, to actually find my purpose back in life. I had to break the trauma bond with him, which took me years to do. And that was with the help of Roman, figuring out what that was. But I had to overcome the fear that was instilled in me through that relationship to actually find my purpose again as a mom and as a person of who I was myself. It can be done.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We appreciate you sharing your experience with us. Thank you to everyone. Let's give everyone hearts and a hand for presenting to us today and encouraging us. When it comes to purpose, it's not something that we can compromise on. We don't want to be guided by fear. We don't want to be guided by fear. So let's look at this little chart here. And let's organize our thinking around this. So we have living according to fear on the left side, and we have the benefits of living according to your dream on the right side. So just give it some thought. What are the effects of living according to fear? You're going to have constant anxiety. You're going to have higher stress levels. That's going to hurt your health. It's going to make you less happy. You're going to have limited personal growth, limited personal development. You're going to have missed opportunities. If you're in fear all the time, then you're not going to take opportunities that present themselves. You're going to have strained relationships. If you're living according to fear, it's going to hurt your relationships because you're worried that your spouse or your friend is not trustworthy. So then you can't trust. Without trust, there really is no relationship. Lack of personal fulfillment, lack of satisfaction because you're not achieving your goals. You'll feel like you have less impact in your life, and you'll feel a loss of self. You're not going to feel like you're having an impact because you're not reaching out and doing things that are going to help people because you're afraid. Your loss of self is because you lose track of who you really are. What is the fear and what is actually me in this process? Now, look at the benefits of living in your dream or in your purpose. You have increased motivation, increased drive. When you live according to dreams and your purpose, you have more fulfillment, more satisfaction. When you live according to dreams and your purpose, you have personal growth, more self-discovery. When you live according to dreams and your purpose, you have enhanced confidence. When you live according to dreams and your purpose, you're stronger, you have more meaningful relationships. When you live according to dreams and purpose, you're living authentically, you're being yourself. And finally, you're having a positive impact on others. And all of that comes from what? It's a simple switch. Instead of allowing the motivating factor of your life to be the fear, what you're running from. Well, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. You're switching it. You're allowing your motivation to be your own dream, your own desire. So how do you pick a dream? How do you pick a purpose, something that you can live for and live toward? Isolate what you want. Isolate what you want. Oh, but what if I don't even know what I want anymore? A want is a choice. A want is a choice. So if you have two things in front of you, an apple and an orange, and I say, which one do you want? It's not about knowing some instinctual, mystical thing as to whether you're going to do the apple or the orange. It's just about considering which one you will choose. You may say, well, the orange has more juice, or I can peel it, and I like that, and that's what I want. I like the pulp. Or you may say, the apple will strengthen my teeth, and I can chew it, and I like that, and so I'm going to go for the apple. But whatever the case, you're making a choice. So if you want to discover your wants, you need to make a choice. So look at what is available to you, as in what is possible for you to achieve within the next 400 to 600 days, that you will look back on with a sense of satisfaction, feeling it was worth the amount of work and anguish and turmoil in order to achieve it, and then reach out for that goal. If it's something that's harmonious with the universe, if it's something that's harmonious with your inner self, if it's something that's pleasing to your God, choose your purpose. You choose. It's not about something miraculous happening so that you suddenly get this awakening like, oh, I've discovered what my purpose is. You don't need to travel to a distant land. You just need to meditate for a moment. Okay. If I'm to live for the next 400 to 600 days, what would I like to have to show for it? And then you will have a purpose. Some people want to become leaders in healthcare, leaders in climate, leaders in environmental issues. They want to be leaders over young men and mentors. They want to help young women to overcome domestic situations, or learn how to understand their narcissistic mothers. People may choose to dedicate themselves to their ministry, to spiritual works and studies. Whatever it is that you decide to do, if you want to open a business, pick one. You choose, and your choice is your wants, and that is your desire, and your desire will be your drive. When you are driven by love and dreams, you're no longer living in fear. And now you'll have momentum. And just like when you're on a bicycle, when you have momentum, you're able to go forward without tipping from side to side. The momentum, the forward motion, helps you to keep your balance. That's where the healing comes from. So saying, my goal is just to heal. The healing is a byproduct of the balance that you achieve with the momentum of pursuing your purpose. In other words, you will heal when you become purpose-driven. But healing is not the purpose. I just want to be happy. Happiness is a byproduct of having a focus on what you have and what you are achieving. Gratitude. Happiness is not the goal. It is a byproduct of living according to your dream and your purpose. Does that make sense? So pick a purpose, drive toward it, and it is key, it is essential to your healing process.